drive things off the wall.
That's us, man. 24/7.
You should expect the unexpected. I mean,
Make it known that this is all about being 100% authentic.
We are live now.
So, with that being said, let's jump right in.
I mean, our state passed. They tried to pass a I can't say the words, provisio or something, whatever. Provision, basically. They tried to pass it to say that you could not mandate that people wear masks. They could not, like schools could not mandate masks.
Oh yeah, our governor just did that. He did an executive order.
Right.
That.
So they passed that, and then the state Supreme Court just overturned it and was like, yeah, no dice. If USC wants to go ahead and make it so that people have to wear masks, then they can do that. You can't tell them it's against the law to protect the people that are, paying to be there, and in that same line, like you got local districts, like I know the two districts here in Columbia, they want to put mask mandates in order, but the biggest beef is Charleston did it. I know the biggest beef is it technically goes against the state provision, so it's illegal.
So Crystal and Dev, y'all are in Georgia, like I'm in Tennessee, you're in South Carolina, all red states. So Crystal,
Georgia,
we're blue.
Georgia's blue.
Oh, y'all blue.
We're
Oh, yeah,
blue.
turned blue. Didn't y'all?
Georgia got turned blue.
Y'all barely turned blue.
Don't matter. Don't matter.
Blue line. We got about double digits.
You seen Elmo dancing on top of the globe doing the flip, and he turned blue.
But your governor is still
an idiot. Yes, he is.
Unfortunately.
Right. So what are y'all seeing in Georgia in terms of mask mandate?
So my son's school, they have to wear masks all day. And I don't think that it's going to work. I think that they may have misstepped and missed the opportunity to do like a staggered approach, so you don't have the amount of kids in one setting at one time. But they didn't do that. They just let everybody go back. And we've received multiple notifications saying that somebody has already been infected with COVID and have possibly, your child have possibly been around that person. Now, what I don't know is if that is a blanket response or message that's sent out to all the parents, or if it's just isolated. And the reason why I say that is because the first one that we received, it said that, Elias could have been potentially around this person who was affected by the virus. Well, we know that not to be true, because Elias that day when they said that, this whole thing happened, right? So there's a lot of moving parts there, and I don't really think that they really grasp or really have a good handle on how the situation is going to turn out. So I don't think that they're going to go the entire school year in school. I think that there is going to become a point where they're going to go back to the virtual setting.
I give them 4 weeks.
Devin, can I ask you, I still don't get the stagger thing. I don't think that really matters. Well, because they're all essentially going to end up being there at some point at the same time.
Yeah, well, with the staggered approach, you have less kids, which means you can practice social distancing more. You have schools within Fulton County that have classes that's like 30 plus kids. There's no way you can social distance with that, even with masks. You got masks on, but you still should social distance. And that's not being practiced because of just the amount of kids that are in these classrooms.
Okay.
Or what you can do is, my thought was, why don't you give the parents the opportunity, as administrators, you guys can, why don't you give the parents the opportunity to choose from their kid either going to school or being virtual, right? And the teachers who are teaching those classes, why don't you put it where you have one teacher teaching the kids who are physically there while the other teacher's teaching virtually, and then swap maybe the following semester or the following, something like that. So, the first 2 semesters, if you was in there physically teaching children, the next 2 semesters, you're going to be doing virtually, because the teachers still have to come to school no matter what, right? So why don't you just kind of give a little bit, why don't you give somebody some more options to play with, as opposed to just saying, okay, all the kids come back.
Yeah. So I think from me, I was, just from hearing from some of the educators that I know, one of the things that they're saying about like hybrid or whatever is it's hard to have, people that are virtual and then also cater to the ones that are there. And I'm like, why don't they give them a paraprofessional to allow them
All right.
to be virtual, them to tend to the virtual, and the teacher that's in class tend to, or vice versa, whichever one.
And a lot of
But why
what,
would they do that?
because a lot of what you guys are saying is it's expensive. Bottom line, I mean, you're talking about hiring a professional to assume a full-time role, whether temporarily or even if it's long term. So for instance, if they gave me a para in my class, right? If I have a paraprofessional in my class, we both can't talk at the same time, especially if I'm talking to the online or she's talking or he's talking to the online. It just wouldn't work. So you basically, you still have to have that person in a separate space. What Devin's talking about, it's still going to cost more money because now you have to create a complete infrastructure that's ideal just for online learning, and have another space that will be adequate for in-person learning. What happens if I'm a teacher that says, I don't want to teach online? And that's what you'll end up having. You'll end up having a lot of teachers who say, nah, I don't want to be a full-time online teacher, even if it's for half the semester. And if you say, well, I'm making you do it, then they're going to say, well, you're going to have to hire somebody else because I'm out. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? And then what happens when, I know here in South Carolina, a lot of the districts have a option to send kids to the virtual academy, the SC virtual school. You can always sign your kids up for SC virtual school. They have dedicated teachers to teach online. They're at a different building. They're not tied to any district. They do what they do. The downside to the SC virtual school, and it's no knock on anybody's ability, the kids are not always taught at the same level as they are face to face. So there's a lot of drawbacks to it. I understand, from a parent perspective, giving the parents the option. But I think when you start talking about logistically, even with a staggered approach, Dev, it turns into a logistical nightmare, because now you have kids, like if we stagger and we say, all right, freshmen come on Monday, Tuesday, sophomores come Tuesday, Wednesday, juniors come Wednesday, Thursday, seniors come Thursday, Friday. Even if you staggered it that way, it still creates such a logistical nightmare. And you got teachers who are having to teach both dual platforms. Here, South Carolina, the one thing the legislation did get right, I got you. The one thing the legislation did get right is they made it so if a teacher has to teach in person and online at the same time, they need to be compensated for it.
All right. So my only question to that is, desperate times call for desperate measures, I'm thinking, and it is the lesser of two evils, right? I mean, you kind of had a structure in place, albeit that it was, rushed and it was an emergent need last year, because of COVID, but you was able to work through that, right? So why could you not try to still figure that part out? I know it's a logistical nightmare.
Yeah.
And I know that financially, it's going to be an issue, but you run into the strong possibility of having to go back to that anyway because of bringing everybody into the school at once.
Right. I don't disagree with you. I agree. I think putting everybody back too soon, bad idea. But when you said, we made it work rushed last year, teachers and the people in the school buildings made it work.
Mhm.
We're not part of the decision-making process when it's decided, hey, let's go back to school. Hey, let's stay out. They don't ask us. They just do it. Legislation, I think it's in Arizona. I think the governor of Arizona said if schools go virtual, they're not going to get funding.
Right.
They're pulling money. So it's like when you have government officials who can control the amount of money that schools can receive, you limit the actual ability that the people who make the change, the people who made last year work, are the people who were never asked any decisions. Like they don't come, no one ever came to my classroom or to my school for that matter and asked us all as an entire school body, hey, we need you guys to vote on how we need to proceed with this. It was like, no, do this. And then the governor gets on TV, the superintendent of education, they get on TV and say, oh, this is what we need to do. I ain't never seen y'all in my school. You don't know what we need to do. So miss me with that.
I say I want to shout out to our superintendent here in Metro Nashville Public Schools, Dr. Adrian Battle. Like, so our governor came out with that executive order, said, yo, no mask mandate. So if parents want to send their kids to school with no mask, they can. Our director of schools came out and said, pretty much, we still doing a mask mandate. I don't care what the governor said. I'm responsible for these kids and their safety and well-being, and we still wear masks. And so shout out to her. She's a Black woman. And that was bold, right? For a Black woman in that position to go up against the governor in such a political climate, rocky political climate that we have right now. So
our superintendent, he's a brother. Shouts out to Dr. Baron Davis. He puts us first, teachers first. He puts students first. He puts the people in the district that he serves first. But see, Derek, I think what you just mentioned, what I'm talking about, what we're seeing is you have local superintendents over these districts who are in the communities they serve. They know what the community needs. They're not playing political games, right. But then you have state superintendents and the politicians, the elected officials who don't know, what those communities need. Those people make decisions, and that's what causes the issue. In Kershaw County here in South Carolina, they had like 300, 400 people out with COVID. That's crippling for that small community. It's a one high school community. You know what I'm saying? Like 2 high schools, rather. Like they can't.
And I think I read something in Florida. I think it was like 10 teachers, 10 to 15 teachers that died from COVID in a matter of like a week.
I don't know.
Crazy.
Think about it like this. I mean, I'm out with COVID, first day of school, I'm out. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not sick, but I'm out.
Right.
How many people did I impact that now have to be out? There was a few people that got to sit at home now because they got a quarantine. But that's the risk that we run. And this is all from,
I just cannot understand how we have these people going to these board meetings, going off, hollering about masks and not wanting them to be on, but you want your kids back in school.
They don't want to. They don't want to deal with. They don't want
to. And then you're going to be on social media and everywhere else telling your story about how your kid got sick and never made it out, and you want prayers.
Right.
That's not fair.
Peace, beautiful people. It's your boy Dev. Listen, man, follow, like, subscribe. 5 Things Off the Wall. We are available on YouTube and IG. 5 Things Off the Wall. 5TOTW. Peace.